Well, hello there. My name is Louis, aka Louis the French Monette, and obviously you're listening to Northern Consultations. On today's show, we got Mr. Numbers himself, Mr. Frank Janisch. How are you today, sir?
Good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, thank you for being on. And as usual, it's Dave.
I am just so excited that I got to be on this interview. As the resident stat man that never gets to talk about stats, I was very excited to have Frank on tonight.
Hey, numbers scare me. What can I say? All right.
They're not too bad. They're not too bad.
Yeah, but definitely two people who are not afraid of numbers is Mr. Numbers himself and Dave. So I definitely wanted to have Dave on this interview because I had a feeling it's going to be a very interesting conversation having you both on together. All right, so let's go right straight into it. How did you first come upon Schmoedown, and what made you really push yourself to be an analyst for this sport?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting story, sort of. I was what I'll say is I was in between jobs when I found the Schmoedown, and so I had some downtime, and I had seen some of the stuff Christian and Mark had done before with Collider and Jedi Council, so I kind of knew them from that. And I was watching the Schmoes Know show, and then they mentioned bringing back the Schmoedown. I didn't know what it was, so I went back and I saw the old matches from seasons 1 and 2, 2014 and 2015, and I loved it. It was kind of the antics of the Schmoes Know show, and then you had the trivia aspect with it, and it was just so fun to watch. And as I'm watching these matches unfold, and lo and behold, Josh McCouga finds his way into the tournament final now against Mark Riley. Now, I thought that maybe we would see Christian Harloff or Mark Ellis, one of those guys get to the final. But Josh McCouga, I was like, how good is he really? So I just decided to do a simple, questions asked, questions answered kind of column thing in a spreadsheet. And I did it for every competitor in the tournament. And because I just wanted to know, how good is he? How far off is he? And as well as everybody else who had played. So that's kind of where the impetus for taking stats originated. And once the league started up at Collider, season 3, I started keeping track of stats for that. Now, at this point, I had not gone back and taken stats for the team's 2015 season, but I had watched it. And as season 3 started progressing, I was like, I got to go back and do the team. So I eventually went back and did that one. But that's kind of how it really just started was I was in between jobs and I had all this spare time for 2.5 to 3 months. And so I just went back and watched every match. And slowly but surely, I kind of expanded what I was recording and what I was figuring out. And I didn't make it complicated at all, just simple addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, what have you, just your basic arithmetic, and kind of just built it out from there. And it's been going ever since.
And is it something that you used to do in the past, like sports or other stuff, or is it a new endeavor that you just put yourself into it because you're curious yourself and it expanded from there?
Well, I was certainly curious from a statistical standpoint whenever there's competition involved. So, of course, if I follow the NBA, NFL, baseball, all of that, I like looking at stats and kind of breaking it down that way. I have a lot of conversations with my friends about stats, and you look at this, you look at wins above replacement and, different metrics that are out there, right? The QBR and things like that. And so it's fun because also I used to play fantasy football a lot. And so I was always looking at stats, trying to figure out the edge. So I got interested in stats through fantasy sports like that. And when it came to the Schmoedown and just kind of my own natural curiosity and having a handful of time, you put those two together and that's kind of, just how I got here a little bit, A
little bit hold numbers existed.
Yeah.
Now, you've talked about how you came into the Schmoedown and stuff, but obviously you're not a competitor, you're not a manager, even though I think you'd be a fantastic manager. You are obviously the premier analyst for the Schmoedown. How did you come into let's just talk about your journey with the rundown up into where you are now.
Sure. So yeah, I was keeping track of stats, and the thing about that was between not being on the rundown, following the Schmoedown as a fan. I mean, I'm still a fan now, but as a fan, and then doing the rundown in between that time, I think I was one of like a few people that would ever post stats in the Facebook group, which was the Schmoeville Facebook group at the time. And I would post, my table of stats in that group every so often, and so would some other people. And I think I was the most consistent doing it, because it does take some time, and you kind of have to figure out a bit of a system, and if you're really passionate about it, that also helps, which I was at the time and still am. So I was able to keep with it. I wanted to keep up with it, and slowly but surely I was building this database of information, and that was really cool to me as well. So there's little things that kept me going, but I think the consistency on my end of posting in the group is what separated me from some other people that were posting at the same time, but they would do little things here and there, but I was always consistent in what I would post, when I would post. And I think people in the group were kind of expecting, at this on a Tuesday, you're going to see whatever, from me. So I was very mindful of that. If I continue to post regularly on this, then they'll know to look out for that if that's what they're looking for. And slowly but surely, I kind of become known as the stats man in the group. So when Aaron Turner, the original person who wanted to start the rundown, who started the rundown, there was a post out there, would anyone be interested in talking about the Schmoedown? Because at that time, there was another podcast called Schmoeville with Ryan Snelling and Brian Davids, and they were doing everything from the Schmoes Know podcast, as well as covering a little bit of the Schmoedown at the time. But Aaron had the idea of taking a whole show, of like a 40-minute to an hour show, and breaking everything down. And he had a wrestling background, and as you know, Schmoedown is heavily inspired by wrestling. So I put my name in the hat. It was me, Evan DeGraff, Matt Kearns, who both went on to Take 3 and other stuff after that. Evan's now at PJ Campbell Network. And then Aaron Turner and myself, we did the first episode. We uploaded it to SoundCloud, I believe Aaron did, sent it to Christian. I think he liked the idea of it and like to build upon that. And he went back to Aaron and said, how about you and Frank do the show on a weekly basis? And I was like, holy crap. I was like, I just thought this was going to be like a one-off kind of thing. And because I had done another Google Hangout talking about Game of Thrones with, I think Rachel Cushing had set it up, and there was Kristen Smith in there, and Rosica was in there. And so I thought it was just another one of those things, just a one-off thing. And that'd be fun, But then it turned into a weekly thing, and we started getting guests, and that's when I was like, we got Mark Ellis and John Roca on, and I was like, whoa, I had not been as long of a fan as everybody else had been, who had been following them since like 2012 or whatever. I came into it like end of 2015, start of 2016, and here I am, kind of thrown into it, kind of on accident, really. But I think my consistency with keeping up, posting the stats, kind of led me to get that spot on the very first inaugural rundown, because I also then presented my stats within that episode. And I think also that's what caught Christian's ear, was when you talked about the rundown, when you talk about, the Schmoedown, and you give a bit of an analytical approach with it, it gives a little bit more credence to what's going on in the game, and a little more context in terms of how good our players are, whatnot. So I think with that, and you meld it with the ESPN type of feel that we try to go for, all that stuff started working itself out throughout the years. And now, we've gone through a couple other hosts during my tenure, and, me and Brad do it every week now, and sometimes live. We've done a couple live ones this past week, and it's just been a roller coaster from then until now.
Yeah, and you solidified the sport aspect of the Schmoedown. You really gave it a voice, and it was. I remember the first time, if I'm not mistaken, the first time I discovered Rundown was episode 40 with Bibiani, when it was only a podcast.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was a while back, but yeah, I remember like having that sport feel to it was interesting, because yes, I saw it as entertaining. I saw it. Yeah, I understood the wrestling part. I kind of start reverse. I watch here and there, but I never followed order. But when I discovered your show, I kind of understood, this is rankings. This is, you can really dissect every player. And for the competitors, it gives them an edge because you can really understand what you're up against, what are their strengths and weaknesses. So it's really interesting. And it's funny you say you had Ellis and Roca, because we just had Roca not too long ago. And it's kind of what we realized. We made it. We're starting to, we're starting to make a name. So it's kind of funny when you said we had guests like Ellis and Roca. It's kind of Roca as the benchmark of, hey, welcome to the league, son.
Right. Oh yeah, I was totally freaking out. Not freaking out. Actually, I was more calm than I thought I would be. It's very funny. I remember exactly where I was when I recorded that episode. I remember exactly where I was when I recorded that episode when Alice was first on, and because they were in 2 different apartments, and it's so weird how I distinctly remember just where I was, how like my setup was and everything. It was really something that at the time, for sure, I recognized this was something really, really cool. And I was just really glad to be a part of it. I had no idea how I got into that situation, but I was there and I was enjoying it. But it's so funny to me that I can actually visualize where I was for those 2 interviews. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I was so calm before the Roca interview. I was like I thought I wouldn't phase. I'm like, oh my God, it's Roca. I was so calm until I saw Roca's face. I'm like, well, welcome to the Outlaw, Roca, John. Like, crap, I'm messing this up. So, but
I think what made it easier for me though was because we were all audio, so I never even saw John's face. I never even saw Alice's face. So it was all audio. So it's a little bit different than not seeing somebody across on the screen.
Yeah. Dave,
now, you talk about how it was probably easier and you didn't have the nerves that you thought you did. So I got a bit of a 2-part question here. First, when you first started out and you're just a guy recording a podcast and you're getting some guests on, did you ever see yourself eventually opening up in front of a crowd for a live event, having people chant your name? And also, how do you feel about all these other after shows and people like us who have come up after you, and people like this guy were like, oh, look at it, we made it. How does that stuff make you feel?
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the live show thing, because that's interesting. Because I there's no way I said, you know what? I think in a year and a half, I'll be opening live shows in New York, or in Orlando. I never thought about that. Never thought I would get to that level. I always thought, and honestly, I didn't really know where the rundown would go, or the Schmoedown for that matter. But what I will say about doing those pre-show openings in front of crowds like that, I don't know if I would have been in that position to do that if it were not for Brad Gilmore, because I feel like, and rightfully so, that Christian has more confidence in Brad's natural ability. His background is in radio and wrestling. He's been in that world much longer than I have. Even though I might be older, he's been in that world, that performing world, much longer and more consistently on a consistent basis than I have. And so I think Christian was probably in New York. I think he was probably like, yeah, we'll have Brad up there and Frank will be there, and that's fine. But Brad will be up there, so I know it'll be fine. And to tell you the truth, I could not agree more that day, because I couldn't not imagine going out there by myself if Brad wasn't there. And also, I don't think Christian would have sent me out there without Brad, or even Josh, because we had Josh McCouga come out that night as well. And I've done other pre-show warm-ups without Brad, like in Chicago, but Josh went out first, and then because that's not my realm where I come from, because I'm just kind of a normal guy. But the interesting thing is, I'd say back in 2010, 2010, I actually did the whole improv program at Second City in Chicago, and that was like a year, or that was like 13, 14 months long, something like that, at least a year. And I did some classes again at Improv Olympics. So there was a period of time in my life where I was kind of in the improv world, even though I was like learning as a student in these programs. I would still get up on stage and do some improv sets and whatnot. So when I got up there in New York, it wasn't completely foreign to me. Like, I had never done that kind of thing before. I had been in front of a couple hundred people before. not quite like New York, that setting, no, but I had been in front of people before on a stage with lights on you, and so it sort of started kind of getting that feeling back in front of a crowd. But back then, I was doing it on a consistent basis. I was doing it on a weekly basis.
Mm.
When I get to when I do the warm up shows, if I do them, they're once every couple of months, like last year. So I'm a guy that needs the repetitions. I need the reps, and once I can do that, then I'll feel more comfortable. And that's really just in general for me. I'm not one of these naturally gifted performers. I know that, and but if I get the reps, I know it's within me. I know it's within me to bring that out, because I have experienced that before. I think because I was pretty decent back in my old improv days at Second City. I got to a decent level. But so it's fun to do the pre-show warm-ups with Brad or with Emma or with Josh, or I did one with Aaron in Orlando, and that was fun. So it's, again, I never thought I would be doing that for the Schmoedown. I never realized or even thought that my role with the Schmoedown could grow beyond the rundown, and it has. So it's been pretty cool, that aspect.
The power of having a dream and just rolling with it is amazing. You don't know what doors can open and where your path may lead. Something that me and Dave and also Soda, who can be here today, said to ourselves, like, first week is aim high, Schmoedown Podcast of the Year award. We want a nomination. Sure. We even record the first episode. We're like, nomination, we're getting it.
There you go, man. Yeah, you gotta put it out there for sure. Yeah. Oh, your other part of the question was, what
do you think of this pretender saying that he's made
what other after shows? So, to be quite honest, when they started first popping up, I was kind of like, okay, interesting. I don't know if they're gonna be as good as us, but okay, I don't know. They're not going to get really that much traction. I don't know if they're going to get guests. We have the inside track with Christian and getting guests on, so that's going to set us apart for sure. Because I think Take 3 was doing stuff at the time. Lit the Party was really active with their reactions and stuff. So they're getting a lot of love too, because they were like the first, or at least one of the first, to get a lot of recognition for that in the community. And at first I was kind of a little bit resentful, to tell you the truth, but only because I wanted to make sure that they weren't taking anything away from us, even though I had fell into a spot that afforded a large platform. Like at the time on the YouTube channel we were on, I think there's like 20-something thousand subscribers, and I didn't earn any of that. I didn't work for that. I would just happen to fall into a position with that. So I know my mind was kind of doing a lot of the sort of things when other shows would come aboard, but as I continue to do the rundown and other shows pop up, there's some really great fan shows out there. And my whole thing has always been, keep doing what you're doing, keep your head down, do what you know what to do, and put on the best show that you can, and provide the best show what you can, because you've gotten this far doing what you've been doing. Keep doing it, keep evolving. Because eventually we went to video. We were in Ed Video. Take 3 was doing video. I think maybe there's another show doing video as well, but we weren't. So when we went to video, I was like, we have to make sure that we take it to another level. And because the rundown is, in terms of like a fan podcast, a fan show, I feel like we kind of have to set the example or the standard. And there's groups like Take 3 and Call to Action. They've certainly taken notice of that and have upped their game as well with their production value, that I notice, in terms of, obviously StreamYards is a big help, because back in Google, like the Google Hangout days, that's what most people used. And you couldn't really do a whole lot unless you had a guy like Chris Clark who knew how to use OBS and all that stuff, and put layers and layouts rather. And Take 3 had this whole team out there, and they were really going for it. And so, I see the stuff that happens out there, but I got to make sure the rundown is still on top, even if, we're not even eligible for Podcast of the Year award anymore. But now with all these other shows popping up, I love it. I really do, because I think that's what's best for the Schmoedown is when the fan community gets more involved in that way instead of sitting back and just consuming one show. Sure, I mean, that might be great for like a numbers kind of thing, but that doesn't really dictate, what your quality of your show is. It's just something that was there and there's nothing else there. So you're lucky to, you just kind of fall into that. And for a while, I think the Rundown did. And then other shows started popping up. And I'm not saying we're taking away views or they're taking away listens or whatever the case may be. I just think that it's great that other fans are this passionate that they want to start other shows to talk about the Schmoedown. And I don't care if there's 1,000 fan shows out there. I hope there could be, and everyone's having fun doing their own thing. And because that's what's important, because I have a lot of fun doing the Rundown. And I know a lot of the other people who do these types of shows have a lot of fun doing it because it's fun to talk about something that you're very passionate about. And you just want to talk about it with whoever you can. Because when I'm out here, because I've been saying with Kevin, we talk Schmoedown a lot, and I enjoy talking about the Schmoedown. So with anyone that I can, and the more shows, the merrier. Absolutely.
And it's funny too because technically we're just a bunch of schmucks talking about one thing,
yeah.
Right? But at the same time, it's very respectful of the other groups' projects, right? Because when me and Dave and Soda were trying, to come up with the show, you guys, the Rundown, were definitely an inspiration. But at the same time, we were like, how do we differentiate? Like, how do we make it different from them? What, angle don't they do right now? How can we, stay respectful, be an homage, but at the same time, not step over? So there's a lot of respect in the community to try to push towards something new, to go in a different direction, even though, like I said, we're just a bunch of schmucks with webcams talking for an hour,
Right.
So, and it only just expands and grows the love for Schmoedown. And that's our purpose here is in Canada. We need it to grow because we're this close to have a live event before, everything.
Right.
And we put on our shoulders saying, like, we got to bring expansion to Canada because I would kill that to go see one live, but I can't right now,
Right.
Now, you talk about expansion and what's good for the community and stuff. I want to ask you, Frank, obviously your role has grown a lot, and the Rundown's role has grown quite a lot to the point where you guys are making exclusive announcements and stuff like that. What do you see more growth for the Rundown, or even for yourself? Do you ever see yourself growing beyond an analyst?
Yeah, it's a great question. In terms for the Rundown, to me, once Aaron decided to leave the show, the Rundown I felt it's my show. No disrespect to Brad. It's his show as much as it is mine. But because I've been a part of it the longest, went through the ups and downs and some of the things that we've gone through. And not to sound too dramatic because it wasn't, but I feel very attached to it and I feel very protective of it and I want it to look the best. I need every period to be in its right place, misspellings, all of that stuff, and that is to say, I still think there is another evolution for the Rundown. We started audio, we went to video, and then we keep improving in terms of, at one point I was able to do, we put a ticker at the bottom, like a sports ticker would. That took a lot of time because I don't know how to do things like the most efficient way. I just figured out how can I do it, and I do it. And sometimes it takes a long time. The ticker thing took a lot of time to compile every week, and that's when we had Chris Clark producing the show for us at that time, so we could make that work. But at the same time, you want to be efficient, and sometimes the flashiness of the show doesn't really matter as long as the content and the talking points are there, or your point of view is clear. That's what really matters at the end of the day with the show, because at the end of the day, every single fan show out there, including ours, can all look the same, could look great. Everyone can kind of get to that kind of level, but in terms of how do you differentiate yourself is your point of view, your take on the league, on the play, on the players, all of that. But that is also to say that I think there is more of a visual evolution that the rundown could go through, especially now with this partnership with Skybound. I do have, very grand like if at the top of the mountain for a rundown, it would look like an ESPN production. It would look, we would be in a studio at a desk with, all types of graphics and stats that we could pop up and talk about and have, I would love for it to look like an actual sports network type of feel. And I think that's kind of, in my brain, that's like the ultimate vision right now that I see the rundown possibly going to. I mean, that's one of the reasons I moved out to LA was to hopefully do more with the Schmoedown. COVID obviously had different plans, so everything's up in the air. I don't know what's going to happen when things get back to normal or semi-normal. We'll see, but I know I have this vision of, me sitting at a desk or Brad. I know it's going to be interesting because Brad is probably never going to leave Texas. His whole life is there. Everything that he does is there: wrestling, school, family, all of that. So, if we could, because our show is kind of morphed more into a first take / pardon the interruption type of ESPN type of shows, and we kind of moved away a little bit more from talking about the stats and moved more towards a conversational type of show, debating different points and matches. So evolving the kind of the content that we put out there in terms of, are we more stat heavy or are we more conversational? And stats is hard to make entertaining. But
we learned that the hard way the first episode.
It's hard to make it, and I went through that with the stat breakdown at the end of these Schmoedown matches. It was I'm telling the audience what they've seen, but with numbers this time, and how can I make that entertaining? And so my mind was, look, my voice wasn't the best and still isn't the best in terms of delivering information like that, especially, but can I make it look a little more snazzy and make it a little more eye-catching? Maybe that works, maybe it doesn't, I don't know. But when we move to a more conversational type of show, you can still weave in stats. If you watch shows like Undisputed and First Take, they do that. So I'm always looking at those types of shows and saying, how can we adapt that into the Schmoedown? How can that be an inspiration? So that's more of like the evolution of the rundown and how it can deliver, content to an audience that's already seen the matches. The key thing is people want to talk about them. So we should talk about them, but to elevate it to another level, let's also then bring in stats. And I think we need to do that more, at least on my end. I need to do that more. So, so there's that aspect, and then the visual aspect. How much of a big of a production can we make it? And I don't see why we couldn't do this thing from a studio one day, and that'd be a lot of fun.
The only thing missing in that whole explanation is rundown in virtual reality.
I was gonna say VR. We come to Frank's house. He talks to us. We all sit on the couch.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like the other aspect is to do the rundown live instead of pre-recorded.
That'd be cool.
But I would like to do live episodes with more of a production. I think we did pretty good with these live stream ones with some of our graphics. So we got it looking pretty close to what we normally do. But that means like better cameras. Maybe that sounds not bad, but you can always better everything across the board. So, and then if we could do those live from a studio, bringing in guests, things like that in studio, just really up the production value in that sense, and then bring the conversational / debate type of conversation along with that. I think it could be close to its ultimate form in my eyes.
Now, you did talk about the awesome content you had. One thing, there's no Schmoedown without the players. Is there one player in particular that you enjoy the most talking about? Because it's maybe not your favorite player, but the one that really generates the most conversation in your experience.
I don't know that I have one solid favorite. There are a few people that come to mind immediately, and that's John Rocca, William Bibbiani, and Tom Dagnino. They immediately come to my mind in terms of their approach to the game, how they know how to talk about the game, and they're entertaining in their own specific ways. Someone that I always loved talking to on the rundown was Rachel Cushing. She had great insight into her match because, and and hers was different from those three guys because she came at it from more of a behind the scenes type of person, and those three guys are more of a from in front of the camera type of thing, more of a showman type of mentality. But those four, I love talking Schmoedown about, especially on the rundown. Roca, he'll give you everything. Even when he's not supposed to, sometimes. So it's always great to talk to him, and it's great to have built like kind of this rapport, this relationship where we kind of go back and forth at each other, because that can only happen after a few years or a couple years. That doesn't develop overnight. So it's cool that I've kind of gotten to this kind of level with some of these players and as people over the years for the rundown, and it just leads to better conversations, I think, and interviews. But also, like Brad's in turn in the interview, so I mean he's a pro, so that takes a lot of. I don't really have to worry about it, to tell you the truth. But I think Roca. I mean, like Ben Bateman also. I mean, like talking Schmoedown with him is actually kind of intimidating at this point. I mean, he is so plugged in. He is so wired. It's kind of incredible and frightening at the same time. But people like that who have such a huge passion for it. Even Brendan Meyer, when I was talking to him, he just has a mind that thinks about it in a way that's refreshing for someone who hasn't been in it that long, comes into it, like last year, and he's already talking about it like a Roca would or Ben would, and that's really cool.
But you see, with Ben Bateman, he seems so wired in, like you said, that if ever, let's say, Harloff has to step out one day of Schmoedown, I see Ben Bateman taking over, stepping up to take over. That's how plugged in he seems with Schmoedown.
Yeah, I don't think you're completely off about that. I don't know who, if today Christian was like, you know what, I have to hand over the reins. I don't know that there's anyone better probably than Ben Bateman in terms of the guy who really, well, I don't know. I don't even want to say that, but I mean, I think I don't know. It would definitely, the league would definitely be run differently with Ben Bateman. That's just because by default Christian has his own personal style and vision for the Schmoedown. But I think you're right that if there were to be some sort of baton passing, it would not be Mark Ellis, but it would probably be along the lines of someone like Ben Bateman for sure. And I hesitate to even say maybe John Roca as well. I mean, he's super invested in it, and he gets the wrestling aspect, always has the competitive nature. So I know that's why I'm hesitant between Roca and Bateman, but I don't know if Roca would want the job. I don't know if he would want the job. I think Ben would want the job, actually.
Now, we're talking about players and stuff right now, and I want to bring it back to talking about you as an analyst a little bit here. You're a very honest guy on the rundown, and we've obviously listened to hours of your passion on audio and video. Do you ever fear any kind of backlash from any of the players when you're given that kind of honesty? And how do you deal with that? Because you are a system where it works best if you guys are all working in unison together.
Right. That's the thing. I always have to remember, not always have to remember, but it's good to remember that we're all on the same team. We're all trying to elevate the Schmoedown to, the highest heights, right? And at the same time, when you analyze matches, you analyze players, you can't be so hunky dory about it. You can't be this propaganda machine, which I think some people thought that we were, or we had been, or that we are even maybe, because there was a period of the show where it was kind of like we just gave a report card on like the match and the production and the rules and the question writing and the punctuation, this, that, and the other, the lighting, the sound is off. There was a time where we felt like it was a report card every week, but we also talked about the matches too. So as the rundown evolved in terms of what type of content, how it talked about the Schmoedown, it gets more debate oriented, which lends itself to basically opinions from myself and Brad and whoever may be on, and that could possibly get you into trouble, right? So, because what the players are doing is part of the show. Now I have to analyze it as if Roca is ranting and raving about something, I can look at that and critique that, but also at the same time, I know that he's playing into it for a specific reason as well, because it's kind of the show. So some players, I think, are able to take that criticism of me of saying, why is he ranting? He's completely in the wrong, blah, blah, blah. He's delusional, this and that and the other. I think I just have to approach it as if it's actual real life, because while it is a show, I can't, think about, okay, what are they doing for the show aspect? They're going to do this. I can't do all of that. I just have to, what I see is what I, can comment on, because that's all I know and the audience will know. Will I worry about certain play and strategy where that's more of like a real life thing? Sort of, not really, because I don't think the things that I say about players are things that they don't already know about themselves. I think it just sucks to hear from somebody else. Now, I'm not saying I'm right all the time. Definitely not. And I'm more than willing to own up to that. So it's a little bit easier also too when you see like all the comments are kind of like on your side. So it's like, this one will be an easy way. This one will be an easy one to get away with, because wow, I am right and everybody else agrees, and this person is not. So you can kind of use that as a shield. But I never really thought out other competitors being mad about what I would say. I certainly choose my word. I try to choose my words carefully. I don't want to come across too cold or too, disrespectful, because if a player answers 50% of their questions in a match, what am I supposed to say? Oh, they're good. No, you know what? Yeah, that was fine. No, it's actually not. 50% is bad. It's bad. And I can't come out and say, look, they had a really bad match. Sometimes I can, but I don't like to do that. So I'll say, you know what? 50%, I don't know if this is indicative of the type of player that they are, but it just wasn't a good showing today. So you kind of have to massage it a little bit. And so that's the only thing I worry about, is how will I deliver something that's negative, something that negative happened. Do I want to come across cold or harsh? I mean, it depends. Like if it's Roca at this point, yeah, I'm going to go all in on him now, because he's been running his mouth for the past couple of months. And so you know what? I don't feel bad saying if he had a bad game, like he sucked. And if, so I won't feel bad at that point.
You can take it too. You can definitely take that kind of criticism.
Right. And he's someone who can definitely take that. And I think he knows that when I hope he knows, when I say that kind of stuff, it's, again, something I don't think he wouldn't have known. Like if he plays crappy, he knows he's already played crappy. He doesn't need to hear it from me, but I still have to talk about it, and it just probably sucks to hear it again if he's going to listen to that. So also, yeah, if you're going to listen to an episode where you've had a match and you didn't play that great, what do you think you're going to hear? What do you think you're going to hear? Like, you probably won't hear a whole lot, actually, because I won't really get into players or teams that lose a lot or that lost. The main focus is really on who won, because they're going on to do something else. And that's more exciting to talk about as well. But yeah, worrying about what other people are going to think about what I say, I don't, because I honestly don't think that a lot of the players or the managers listen to our show, even though I think I'm like half wrong on that. I think, I do sometimes I find out that certain players or managers do listen. I'm like, whoa, didn't really think, you had the time to listen to our show. Because I really don't, I don't, for some reason, I just don't think, I think they have other better things to do than listen to my little dinky show. So I think that also helps, not having to think about who hears what I say. Actually, when we had Roxy on this past week, she mentioned something that she referenced something I said about Jared Haben, just like, going back to what you said about Jared, Frank. And I was like, oh, okay, she did listen to that part. Okay, well, all right. I mean, I was kind of harsh on Jared Haben. I said, she should drop him, she should trade him or whatever, or drop him, I think I said. And she kind of gave an explanation. I mean, it's kind of a harsh thing to say about a player, to drop him and I kind of just went off on, I was really hard on Jared, but and then that's probably because I also think he probably wasn't going to listen, so I could get away with it a little bit easier, So, but Roxy listened, and sometimes that catches me by surprise when someone will say, "Oh, I heard you say this," and I was like, "Oh, you did? Oh, I didn't think you really listened." Or I guess I should have been like, I should. Duh, they're probably gonna listen to this episode because it was about them. Not saying that everyone that is that vain, but I don't know. I still think maybe like 7 people listen to our show every week. So
no, we strive to have your numbers. Our goal is to have what you're doing right now.
Yeah, but you know what? You can't really look at the numbers because it doesn't mean anything. I'm not getting famous or rich off of this. Like I'm only doing it to have fun, and I want to make sure that whoever is listening, the 7 people that are listening, that they feel like they didn't waste their time listening to what I said.
Now, go ahead.
As one of the 7 people who listen to your show pretty consistently every week, I'm going to ask you to be a little cold here for a second.
Sure.
Is there a player, and we're going to go into stats for a second, is there a player whose stats aren't telling the full story? Because for me right now, and this is going to sound pandering because you've voiced this opinion before, it's Brandon Hanna. His record is not indicative of his stats. Is there someone else like that really has just fantastic stats that just has not been able to close it yet, in your opinion?
Yeah, so Brandon Hanna, absolutely. The guy's answering 80% in interview. He's 2-2, and he's 2-2, and he's lost to one person.
Yeah.
Right. So, and it's funny to me too when people say, "Oh, Brandon's not gonna go far. He's 2-2. He's lost to Chandru, and blah blah blah." It's like, well, yeah, he's only lost to Chandru twice. Sure, not great. But Chandru's not in this tournament. So, I think he's going to do all right. He's answering 80%. He just happens to go up against a guy who's averaging like 88%, 87%, or whatever Chandru's numbers are.
Chandru's not in there, but Robert Parker is. And
right. Well, he is far away from him, So, like, he would see him to the final. So, yeah, Hanna is a great example. Another guy that I think that people don't really realize is Chance Ellison. The guy has phenomenal numbers and a crappy singles record. Sure, he has a team's belt or had a team's belt to show for it, but his numbers are just so good. It's crazy to me that his singles career hasn't been better because his numbers are, last I checked, are like right on par with Paul Oyama's. And Paul Oyama went on a 6-game win streak and had the belt and defended it once in New York. Chance Ellison's numbers are super similar to Paul Oyama's, but he has nowhere near the singles career that Paul Oyama has had, right? So yeah, it's Chance comes to mind. Brandon Hanna's a good call. I had someone else in my mind right now. Shoot, I forget. But
now,
yeah,
I love that you brought up Chance because that just is so much vindication for me. About 2 months ago, in between shows, just before we were recording, we were talking about Chance, and I was like, you know what? I really think Chance is going to make a really great dominant singles run this year. And I forget which one of the 2 knuckleheads on the show with me was like, I don't know, man. Look at who he's lost to. And I said, look at who he's played. Andrew Geis is the only plays champions. So does Chance. Except
right.
Chance is also a champion. And it's just, that's another great example of that.
Yeah, the other person I thought of was Janine, actually. Now, her first 2 rounds are great. Her numbers for the first 2 rounds. It's the final round where it just really kind of falls off a cliff for her. But her numbers are so good in the first 2 rounds that she can hang with just about anybody. And it's when she gets to that final round, when she had that triple threat at Collision versus Andraco and Stacey Howard, that was hers to win, and it just did not go her way with in that final round. So I think Janine's also, and like her record is it's not great, guys. We know, but I think her play through her rounds 1 and 2 are so good that she's always in contention to win a match. She's never ever really down and out. And while her example might be a little more on the fringe side compared to Chance, I still think she's someone that whose record just does not do justice to the amount of work she's put in and the types of matches the types of matches that she's played, because she's also been victim of a lot of bad luck, much like Chance, playing Kalinowski twice, the whole bomb thing, opponent's choice. She's been up against some pretty tough odds in her matches, but I think the knowledge is there, and I really feel like it's going to come around for her eventually, much in the same way it's going to come around for Chance eventually in singles. Yeah.
Now, if we flip what you just said with Janine, who is, in your opinion, the ultimate round 3 player?
No one. I really don't think anyone is, because initially you would want to point towards the greatest of all time, Dan Murrell. His final round stuff isn't that great. Like, no one has really phenomenal numbers in the final round. Now, here's a weird stat, actually, that I did a long time ago, and I forget exactly when I did this stat, but when I did do it, Josh McCouga actually had like a really good accuracy rate in the final round. Now, since doing that stat, his previous matches, his matches after that, really tanked his numbers. But up until like a certain point, he had like phenomenal final round numbers. I remember doing that stat, running that one. But right now, no one really has like through the like points to it, and you can point to it and like they would win the match. Not really. I mean, everyone's very 50-50 to be quite honest. Like, to the best of my recollection, no one's hitting like 80%, and if they are, they've probably played like 2 matches and are nowhere near a belt. So it's of no significance at this point. No one's really just super dominant in that final round, because that 5-pointer, it can go any which way, and it does, and it just tanks everyone's numbers. Plus, there's only 3 questions in that final round, so it takes a nice sample size to kind of really formulate who is actually really good in that round. We don't have that many players that have played more than 10 matches yet, so while we do have a nice amount, it's not enough, really, in my estimation, to kind of, say, we have a good sample size of this amount of players, and here's what the average is, and you kind of like figure that kind of thing out, what's good, what's bad. So there's a lot to it, but there's no one really that stands out. I could go around the numbers and I could be wrong, but when I did run that stat a while ago, no one really jumped out. I don't think anyone's really dominated a final round. I mean, singles and teams in Inner Geekdom, maybe Inner Geekdom, it's probably pretty good. Star Wars, I'm not even worried about, because that's Alex Damel, just, that's all that skewed. But when it comes to singles and teams, I don't know if there's anyone that's like super above the rest.
Now, obviously, we're coming near the end of the interview here. Just quickly, can we get your quick thoughts on the upcoming Inner Geekdom and Star Wars tournament? Obviously, you're going to save most of your good thoughts, I'm sure, for the rundown, but we'd love for you to talk a little bit about that here.
Oh, no, I'll give you everything I got. For Star Wars, I am super excited about that one because it's an 8-player tournament, so you're already in the thick of it. Andrew DiMolanta going up against Joseph Scrimshaw is crazy to me that's a first round matchup. But I mean, for all intents and purposes, you could say, because it's an 8-player tournament, it's a second round match. Okay, if you look at it that way, not nearly as crazy, but still, you think that's a semifinal match for sure, not a quarterfinal match. But it is, because he has an 0-2 record, and I get it. But his accuracy rate is 88%. Scrimshaw's is a little bit less than that, actually, even though he's played a couple more matches than DiMolanta. When you look at someone like Laura Kelly and Sean Sullivan, that's a crazy matchup. I don't know where Laura Kelly's study regimen is. I know that she like ramps up and like takes breaks, but she also does her podcast, so if that can kind of keep her, a little bit in the flow of things. She's a huge prequel fan, so I think she really just brushes up on original trilogy stuff because she's been able to follow the sequel trilogy. So it'd be interesting, because Sean Sullivan, I really don't know that much about him. He didn't have like the greatest game against Adam Witt, but it was still nonetheless impressive, because that's a base for him to elevate from, to grow from, and we'll see if he can do that from that match against Adam Witt to this tournament. So Laura Kelly could have her hands full, even though she most recently had a Star Wars title shot against Alex Damon. Knapsack and we'll play the play-in winner of Ace and Josh Quevedo. Now, after talking to Roxy, I think Josh Quevedo is going to win that match against Ace.
Okay.
And I also think Josh Quevedo is going to beat Ken Knapsack in that match.
Knapsack my pick. Knapsack is my pick to win it all, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you that's a bad decision. I'm going to tell you that. I can't guarantee you that he won't win in his first match, but he's not going to win the final. I can almost guarantee you that one.
All right. Well,
that's my yeah. So, and then who's on the top? O'Malley Damon and Adam Witt. That's an interesting one. That'll be a fun one because Molly Damon, I think she did all right in that Fatal 5-Way in Chicago. I think she was like at 77% at that match, and Adam Witt is right around those numbers when he played Sean Sullivan. But I've heard, Adam's really put in a lot of work for Star Wars, so maybe he raises that a couple points, that accuracy. Molly Damon, her husband's the champion, like who's like indestructible in Star Wars. Some time has passed since Chicago. So, and I don't know. We'll see. That's going to be an interesting match. That one could be like a very close match, much in a different way. Like Scrimshaw and DiMolante is going to be a very nail biter. But that tournament will be incredible to watch, and it's live on Twitch. So no one has to wait or I don't have to wait, to not say anything because I've seen it, or everyone will have seen it. Well, not everyone, but have the opportunity to see it live on Twitch, and that's gonna be a lot of fun. So, that's Star Wars, man. It's gonna be, because that's my favorite franchise. Those are my favorite movies of all time. So I always love seeing high quality, high competitive Star Wars matches.
And if you want a shameless self plug here, but if you want a little peek into Laura Kelly's studying regimen, where she's at, check out last week's episode of Northern Consultation, where we had Laura Kelly on as our guest.
Nice. What'd she have to say? Just give me a little snippet.
She was about to go watch episode 9, and if you want to find anything else out, go watch the episode.
One surprising thing with her is the fact that she started Star Wars with the Force Awakens. She wasn't a fan before Force Awakens.
Right.
She's a late bloomer.
I saw one of your guys' posts about how long has Laura Kelly been a fan of Star Wars. The answer might surprise you. Yeah. I did know the answer prior to that, and it is surprising. So just a little plug there for that one. Yeah. But I mean, Laura Kelly, she's from Chicago, so obviously I'm going to root for Laura Kelly. But
I don't care what you said, Frank. Knapsack with the way. For me, it's Molly versus Knapsack, and Knapsack.
That would be great. That would be great.
Now, before we go into, because we want to know a tiny bit more about the man himself, before I go into that, my surprise question, like I said, behind the scenes.
Sure.
Do you think you'll ever venture into managing a team? And if yes, would you do a heel team or a face team?
Ooh. Do I ever think I'll get into managing? I don't know that I could. Would I want to? I would like to try it for sure. I would like to try it, definitely. Christian has his own list of criteria for the way people get into matches or manage or interviewers or sit at the desk, and I don't know if I meet any of those criteria at the moment, and nor do I know if I want to try and meet those criteria, because I don't want to say I'm content with the rundown, but as of right now, just the way the state of the world is with COVID and all that, I really don't know what's going to happen. So that kind of does inform my thinking as of right now in terms of, in the future, sure, I would totally be up for it. If he asked me to do it, I would definitely do it. But if it's something I got to work towards, and I really wanted to, then I would have to figure out the criteria. What would he really need for him to be comfortable enough for that? And So that would be fun for sure. For sure.
Let's say he offers it to you, like, hey, Janisch, manage a team. Are you going full heel, full face, in the middle? Like, what would be your concept?
So I don't know if I could ever truly be full heel. Because I mean, I can certainly be an asshole at times. I mean, I really can. And you know, I can be a real ass for sure. In a very condescending, very, sarcastic manner, definitely. But at the same time, I think I can swing back the other way and be cordial and respectful. So I don't know. However, I don't know if I would want to put such a defined label on it, but I would let the audience decide what what my faction would be labeled as, and then so be it.
Now, if you don't mind, Dave, we're going to go into the personal questions fast.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
All right. Is there something the audience would be surprised to learn about, Mr. Numbers itself? Something that is not necessarily known to the world.
Some people seem to think because I do stats that I'm like I'm a math wizard or something. I'm not. I was really bad at math. I think I got like 2 A's my entire life in a math class. I was just bad. I was like a C student in math, for real. But I felt like I could do stats for Schmoedown because it's addition, subtraction, multiplication, division most of the time. If you keep it simple, because the Schmoedown, when you do it from like a stats perspective, you really should just keep it simple, because you try and go into different formulas and weights and whatever. Like, I can research stuff and see if I could implement it, but I was like, the Schmoedown is so volatile in terms of like its format and how it operates in the match and the matches themselves. Not everyone. It's not a level. I don't want to say level playing field. It's not a uniform match type of length, every single thing. So that throws things off. That throws off formulas, and it's hard to adjust. So I'm not good at math, but I am good at subtraction and addition, and I am good at using Google Sheets. So, yeah.
You could have fooled me, to be honest.
That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping I fool a lot of people.
Oh, you told your secret. Now we know, sir.
Oh well.
I think that's just a criteria for getting into stats, is being below average at math, because I don't know. You said you got 2 B's. I don't know that I got a single 2 A's. I don't know that I got a single A in math class growing up. So good for you.
And then you can subtract and add and multiply, because I can't even do that. All right. And one of our staple questions we've been asking since first interview with Cybo, and been sticking with it. If movies would be going away forever, and Men in Black would zap your memory of all movies, what would be your last 3 movies you would watch as a final goodbye?
As a final goodbye to all movies?
All movies.
Forever.
So I would definitely watch Star Wars, first one, Episode 4, New Hope, because I would need the hope. Another one, I probably would watch. I think I would. Okay, I would watch. I think I would watch Twister. I would watch Twister because that movie reminds me a lot of like my family, my sisters. We watch it all the time. I would watch Twister, and then I would watch The Mask. Mask is one of my favorite comedies of all time. I just get a kick out of watching that movie. Jim Carrey is so great, and it's such a fun time to watch that. So I would want to go out having some fun watching The Mask.
All right.
I love that we've been asking this question now for however many people have come on, and not only do we consistently, I don't think we've had any overlap yet.
Really?
In the movies. Yeah. I don't think any overlap, but also consistently someone says one of my favorite movies. I love Twister. Constantly I say to my fiance, I quote Twister at her and say, I think we should get a divorce. And she never knows what I'm talking about. But
we always reference, I think it looks like we're going in, through the house, or the debris. That's another one we always like to say.
Yeah.
Debris. Yeah. Man, that movie, I got to go watch it right now.
This is my favorite interview we've ever done, though. Big fan of this one.
All right, you're a simple man.
I'm all right now. Yeah.
But I've never said mine since the beginning, but more I've been thinking about it. One movie I know I put in is Stargate. I've seen that movie so many times. Stargate, Aladdin, and I'm not sure about the third one, but I know Stargate and Aladdin's my top two for sure to rewatch. Cool. All right, anything else you want to add, Dave?
No, nothing for me. I think we're all good.
All right. Well, in that case, before we end the show, one thing I have to remind you, shame on you. If you're not subscribed, what are you doing? Subscribe. Press that button. You see numbers. We got Roka, we got Kelly, and there's so much more people coming on very soon, including also episodes of Schmoedown 9 Canada, which dropped yesterday or tomorrow. Sorry, I'm bad at timing, bad at math, bad at schedule, bad at a lot of things. All right, so subscribe. That being said, Numbers, where can they find you, sir?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at FrankieJ29. You can follow me over there.
All right, and you, Dave?
You can find me on Twitter at Lees Me Alone and on Instagram at Baby James Lees. And also go follow, go join the Schmoes of the North Facebook page. It's a very healthy and positive community run by Canadian fans. You don't have to be Canadian to join, but we all got a little Canadian in us somewhere.
You just have to be polite because we are. All right, so that being said, and you can find me in bed because it's midnight and 11 minutes, and I'm tired and I'm working tomorrow. So that being said, thank you very much for watching to the end. Till next time.
Bye.